Hey, welcome back, Brandon Media Strategies. How's everybody doing? Welcome back from break. Let's do some housekeeping and then move on. And I'm going to do something a little bit new today, just today only. So it'll be fun. We know this. We know this. The registration is opening, or it's open. It's opening. It's opening soon. Make sure you check this over, figure out what you need to take, what do you need to take next. Just go through the process. Like if I've taken this course, or this course, I'd move on and I'd take those. So you go from first to second to third to fourth. Just noting that fourth is now broken up into a fall and a spring cohorts, as just the smaller class sizes only allows us to run so much. And then you can always have your general study. So if you have any questions, comments, about this, you want to know more, you can always ask me. Feel free to ask me. You don't have to go directly to your advisor. Feel free. All these are open for now. They're going to be closing Thursday, I believe, as I always do this. I did this in the last class. I didn't have it. Let's see. I can scroll on it. 4/16. Yep, Thursday. So 8 and 9 close on Thursday. Just so you know, if you don't have that stuff in, those are closing. I kept them over for an extended period of time, just to be nice. So make sure you get everything done. As we know, the Street Festival design is all due on Thursday. So make sure you have it all completed. Just run through it. You're going to have your posters, your flyers, your tent, sandwich boards, die cut sticker, and uniform design. And then you're gonna have your mock-ups of the poster, the flyer, the tent mock-up is there, the sandwich, I got mock-up there. Your die cut sticker, make sure you actually have a die around it. What shape is that sticker gonna be? And then your uniform t-shirt design. I always talk about this one. This is a personal preference one, is like, what would you wear? Where would you want the logo to be? It could, and I talked about that the last time as well. So we get that finished up for Thursday. As we roll into this new session, of course, we always do our little, oh no. Okay, it's not going to let me do some things. It'll work for you. It's just because I have too many windows open and it doesn't like that. So do your attendance. Let's check out our PDF lectures. No artifacts and no low res. We'll go over those today, and then another project, and then Tuesday's assignments. So I won't go into these today. I'm going to talk about those other two, and then I have another little presentation for you, just to show you a professional style presentation. So we have exploring brands. D means this is our last one. And then I think there's exploring media is next week, and then you're done creating these. So that might be good news for some people as we roll out the semester. So pick a brand that you like. I was working through this. I was looking at this, and I was gonna, before I got some information to change the lecture a bit, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do, one of my favorite brands, that I use. And I was like, they're all over the place. Why is this brand all over the place? And then I was like, oh, I get it. Because the brand is based on sponsorship. And so with what happens with the sponsorship for the brand is they let the sponsored person choose the graphics. And so like the graphics are always all over the place because they just have somebody who they're sponsoring and they say, what do you want on it? And they're like, oh, I want a dragon, killing a something. And they're like, so that's what they do. So they get really far away from kind of like a brand, except for just the standard logo, which is really funny. But so pick your brand, pick what you want to do. Maybe I'll have something to show you, but I'm more concerned about the launch of the final project. Get some background information. Make sure you match the visual identity of it. That's the big part. That's we talk about brand and brand identity. I talked about that in the history class today, and corporate identity, and making sure that like when you do something, when you work for a brand, your work has to match that brand. And that's similar to what we're doing with all these projects that we do, where we start out and we develop a logo, and then we continue on and we make a poster and we make a flyer, like, and all those, that's a brand. And we're trying to keep this brand consistency through every piece. We don't want any pieces to look out of step, like where people would question, like, wait, how come that sign looks like that? Like everything should really look the same. And that's the easy part when we deal with this and we're working on that big project, is making sure just everything, you just copy and paste it. If you did your logo, don't change the logo, copy and paste it. You know, like if you add something, why did you add it later on and then go back? Can I add it to everything else? And it may seem like it's almost too simple. Like I just have to use the same things. Yeah, use the same things over and over and over and move them around and change them that way. So, and then tell us why you like your specific brand. We know how to build 14 by 9. This is in InDesign for this project, and you know what to do as you've done it 3 other times in the semester. The other one is every designer needs to know. This one's a tougher one. This one is pretty heady. So it might take a little bit of reading. I found what my quote was going to be. I had one before the switch up, and it was like on the final page. Yeah. So yeah, a little bit, this is going to be a little bit headier one, a little bit harder, but you guys can figure it out. And, and it doesn't always have to be one line. You can do a little paragraph of text too. Don't just set yourself up for like one thing. You might be able to play around with typography in that sort of way. So quick little design project. I know you guys can all knock it out. And then the Thursday, we just talked about this, making sure you have everything completed. Or not, the Thursday, excuse me, I clicked on the wrong one, but I already talked about this Thursday is the final phase 5. And then on this Thursday, we will roll into the brand new assignment. Don't worry about that now. We'll worry about that later. So let's do the little no artifacts and low res. Let's start with low res. Download. And then no artifacts. Download. All right, we do a lot of grabbing from the internet these days. I think I've been grabbing stuff from the internet since I've been designing. The internet has sort of been around, and this is always a problem, is knowing what to grab, when to grab it, how to grab it, and where to get your information from. Now, when we're dealing with stuff in school, you're allowed a lot of leeway, all right? That you can kind of grab an image from anywhere. How does that go with copyright? The reason why it's free on copyright systems is that you're using it in school as educational purposes, and you're not turning around and you're not creating money off of it. That's the big change. So say if you did this camera and you use this camera in a piece, but it was for somebody, you got paid by a client, and you use that camera and you didn't get rights to it, you can get sued. If you use this picture of this camera, but it's just for a school project and you put it in your portfolio, no harm done. It's a school project. You're not making money. The closest thing to making money is it might score you a job. Like, oh, I really like that piece with that half a camera in there. But one of the big things that we need to rely on is getting the images and getting them high res enough. Resolution is a big deal. You should always be working at 300 PPI or DPI. It's pixels per inch or dots per inch. It's generally stated more all over as DPI than PPI. So go with that one. And 300 allows you room to double the size of what you are creating. So if the minimum image size you would want to print is 150 DPI. You can go, anything above that is great. Anything below that will start to look bad. And so when you go and you search for your images, and we have these, and I maybe sometimes question the resolution of your image. That's why when we look for stuff, and I'm like, camera pictures. Oh, that's the stupidest one to put in there. If I go to images, one thing I always do is I go to tools, size, and large. And I know that what I'm using for these is like if I click on it and I go down here, I look at this number. And if this number is over 1,000, I generally say it's pretty good to use. And I think you can go with it. Again, this is just in student-led work. If you're stepping out and you're like, well, I have a client and the client wants an image, one of those things that you might not think about is you need to add that price into your quote for the client. So if you have a heavy image and they're not supplying images and they're expecting you to buy them, you need to make sure that they're buying the images, not you. And then you have to go through the correct process to get the image. But as we are working in school, you just want to make sure that you're looking for the high-res images. And generally for what we work on, anything over 1,000 here is going to work. This would be a great one. 4,000. It's too big is always better than too small. Like too small doesn't allow you to change size of it, reduce it, make it bigger, make it smaller, make it whatever you need. So that's something, no matter what I'm doing, even with you students, if I'm gathering images before I meet you to work on a design, I always go to tools and I make sure it's set on large and I go with it. Or otherwise I use the Adobe stock, for now. So make sure that you're always using high-res images. That's why. Don't go with that first one you find on the internet. I'm in a hurry. I'm just going to grab that first one and you put it in there and then it looks like this. If it looks like this on your screen, it's going to look worse on my screen. And then you have to remember like, oh, okay, but if I'm working on the web is different, but the web gives you more variance into what you can do. So the web, the is 72 PPI, but now it can be higher. Computers are faster, their resolution can be higher, but it's always about load time. And that's the thing. That's the big thing with image resolution for the web is load time. How long do you want to wait for a picture to load on your website? How much time does that person want to wait? 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever. You lose them if it's not fast enough. So the lower the res image on a website, the faster it loads, the happier people are. So it's a reverse thing. But you also don't want it looking like that on the web either. So please always make sure you're grabbing high res no matter what you're working on. Even the backgrounds, right? Even if you use, I'm going to grab this funky background with, hippy dippy colors and swirls and I got it from the internet, make sure it's high enough res. Don't just grab that first one you saw. Make sure, especially with backgrounds, because if the background looks blurry and everything else looks great, people will be like, oh, why is it pixelated in the background? Oh, I don't like it. You know what I mean? So just take the time and don't base your design off a low res image. There you go. Now, no artifacts. Artifacting. So I put a pair of, I got the scissors and they're like, we wanted it on a dark background. And I was like, can do. But what we don't want is this. This is called artifacting. And this is generally done when you, I don't want to say rush, but when you do a clipping mask in Photoshop and you just use Magic Wand or use something else and you don't test it, excuse me, that's what you run into the situation where you're going to get, and you put on a background, you see that little bit of white and it's exaggerated here, but you don't want to see that. You want this crisp edge to make it, you want to fool people into thinking that it was originally on this background and not, oh, it looks like they cut it out and put it on something. This is actually too perfect. Now it's bugging me, but I hope you get the idea if it's too perfect. because it's the same all the way around. Usually I find artifacting in like one or two areas for a student. And I ask, go back in, see this area where there's a white edge. Why is there a white edge? Well, I cut out the picture. Well, there's now a ton of tools in Photoshop to help with that as well. And if you're working from home, you can use AI. I think next year we're getting the AI capabilities here at school. I think they're working on negotiations right now. But make sure if you take an object that's on a light background and you're putting it onto something with a darker background or a different color background, no matter what, and if it's a person and their hair and their this or their that, make sure you remove all the artifacts that you don't see them and zoom in. I think that's also the killer is like, when you're working on it and you have so many other things going on, is like zoom in so you can make sure that like you don't have that going on anywhere. It should be just nice and clean. I use this various techniques, all different depending on the image. If I'm doing a person, I use that stuff that's already embedded in Photoshop. I believe it's in, I don't know which chapter it is, but it's always that girl with the glasses. Do you guys remember that from Photoshop class? The girl with the glasses. And you go into that filter setting and you can go in and adjust that and have their hair be nice and see-through. I do that. And you know what? I don't do it enough that I actually review it when I redo it. Like, oh, I got an image and I want it to look right. I will go and review that. I have the book. Why not go and review it? You don't have to have everything memorized. If it's flat objects like this, a lot of the times I'll just use a pen tool and do it myself. That's old school. There's like 40 ways to select things in Photoshop, but it's not just one and done. When you do that, do double check. What does it look like on another background? How well did Photoshop do its job? And don't rely on Photoshop to get it perfect. You're the artist, and so you need to make sure that you get it perfect. Like, oh, the computer did a bad job. Don't blame the computer. The computer only does what you tell it to do. It can't do anything more. And if you're like, I don't know, type in, yell at it, make this better, less clipping path, like that's not going to work. So always make sure that you're checking for that as well. That's like a huge stick out of like, just kind of poor quality. I'll just call it, that's the best I can do, just call it poor quality. So there's that. So always make sure you use high res, no matter where you get them, get it high res. Showed you how to do that. No artifacting when you clip things out. Just take your time. It doesn't, I feel like, it used to take forever. God, I remember having to cut out images and it would just be like, how many do you have to do? And you just kind of like put your head down and do it. And it was like something I would batch. I'd have the design down. I'd do a really crappy job. And then I'd go back and batch it and do the high res. Now, lickety split with that Photoshop, but you still have to double check what Photoshop does. So there we go. Next up, what I want to talk about is, I don't want to close that. All right. Some professional work. I want to show you some work that was done by a friend of mine. We talked over the break, and he was just showing me some work, and I was like, oh my God, send me something I can show the students in class to show them what we do is actually done in the real world, how we go about dealing with clients, making, these presentation templates to show, like, and he's like, okay, so he sent one over and I didn't know what it meant. And then it's even better. So you can understand like the type of client, and you just be like, wait, what? He did a poster for what? So the client is the Clock Global Institute, and he's developing a poster. It's already done. So mind you, we've only got part of the presentation. And don't share this with anybody, wink, wink. It's happening in Chicago. And I was like, what the hell is the Clock Global? So I had to look it up. This is what it is. The Corporate Legal Operations Consortium. a nonprofit professional community aimed at transforming the legal industry through innovation. Like, well, that's a mouthful, and this is like such a like crazy like who even knew that this went on? But it does go on, and they need people. This is their website, and it's happening in Chicago, and they're having a big conference. Oh, they have one in the Pacific Northwest. That already happened. A holiday social. Wow, this is all over the place. This is the big industry. So this is who it's based off of. 2,100 attendees, 85 sessions, 200 speakers. What a day. You know, this is going to be great. So they wanted posters to help celebrate this program. So this is, and I don't want to hit that. No. I don't know if I can reduce this. Let me reduce this a little bit more. There we go. No. Okay, that's a little bit better. I was trying to get it to fit all of it, mostly fit in the page. All right. So just like we do, first page, it's just the opener. He's got some information, round one proof, client, bright flag, you know, who he is, the date, and it's a confidential deck, you know, no big deal. And it's the CLOC poster concepts. I don't know if they call it clock or whatever. Like I said, he showed me something different. Next page, the project goal. So this is what was talked about. Why are we doing what we're doing a little bit? And the project goal, to design a poster that is fun and appealing, pays homage to Chicago, feels like a collectible take-home, works on both regular and foil paper. So that was this is just like off of the meeting, the 4 takeaways. And so what he's doing in this is he's representing the takeaways to the client so they remember, oh, this is what we talked about. These were the takeaways. This is the direction he's going in to present the work to the client. And it's just, we do this all the time. It's a re-information. We talked, you know, like you could meet with a client and be like, okay, give me 2 weeks to work on this. And the first thing you do is you sit down and you create this presentation and you start to set it up. And you're like, and why you do it almost before you start working on it is like, you want to do stuff like, okay, they told me they want a design poster that like, and these are my 4 takeaways. So I'm going to work with these 4 takeaways. Perfect. And then when I present it, they know what I know, kind of. You know what I mean? I think that makes sense. So then we go into just a little information. This is, we always have to do this. I've had to do this when this was really essential at times, is to inform the client that the poster concepts are rough format. This isn't, we are not using this, you know, this isn't the final artwork. This is for you to look at, to peruse, and then it's going to be updated and changed and taken and, you know, worked through. But we need to do this. I used to have to do this all the time because when I did 3D development of spaces, they would be like, oh, is this done? We're like, no, because they would look, the thing is, it would look so real that the client would be fooled. So there was even times where we'd take a 3D rendering and then have an illustrator to illustrate the 3D rendering, because it would all be in perspective correctly, and to actually, quote unquote, we'd dumb it down. So the client wasn't thinking that they were looking at a final work, because this work, like his proofs are amazing. So that's something you put in there to make sure. Now he has, you know, a break in here, option A, nice and simple. And he did his research. So Chicago, he's got the cloud gate in there. That's what it's called. It's not the bean, everybody. It's not the bean. A very famous sculptor did it. It's called the cloud gate. And it's flying over more iconic city imagery, including the round towers, rivers, and the Syrian bridges. So these are on the lakefront. If you ever go to Chicago much, you'll see those. He did. So there's a regular full bleed. And then he has one that if they did it and they wanted the border to show, like the border of the paper to look, sometimes full bleed may cost more than regular with border. So it's probably something he discussed with them, that if they wanted edge to edge, it gets printed a little bit differently and cut out. So that's why you need to have your margin and your crop marks and stuff, right? Because there's two ways to show it, two ways to present it. And mind you, he's like, oh no, that's just the mock-up. I'm like, dude, that's like final artwork for me. And then, so this is CloudGate regular. And then this is CloudGate with a simulation of what it may look like with a foil printed on a foil. Mostly like this is coming through, and the edging. Some of the clouds, the clouds in the background, like anything that was kind of left white, the river is going to be foily. And then he has option B. So he's doing the same, all the same information that they asked for. This one may have actually more because this has the date in a different way, just in a different way. It's the classic setup. He has his description of what he did and why. And then even this means more to the pop art style illustration, using bold colors, border the field. So he's using clear, clean words to help people understand what he's going for. What's the idea behind this one? Yeah, it's got it all there, right? Like it's the more you give them, the less they can question. And that's really a big part about this when you present your work, that if you can present your work, like I said, with the more information, the client's going to feel better about it. They're going to be like, oh, okay. They did think about this. They thought about this. Like, he even lists, instead of just being like, it's a picture of a Chicago dog, like being tough with, he's got the peppers, like he's letting them know, like, I did my research. I should tell him he's got a typo in there. Onion, comma, tomato. This is already done though. So, and then this is the regular, and this is the foil version. So you can see that anything that was white becomes the foil. And then option C is this more abstract one, illustrated collage of Chicago's well-known elevated trains on their iron structures. He was able to do some, you do some cool stuff. You got in the bright flag, like kind of like graffiti. That's the client, he's got the names and everything. Everything's in there where it needs to be, and it's a fun juxtaposition, showing the classic buildings, the trains crisscrossing, 3 different trains. I always talk about that work in threes, don't I? I don't know if you've heard me. I mentioned a lot other times, but yeah, working in threes, the 3 trains, different angles, different appearances, all that kind of fun stuff. And even briefly it appears as graffiti on one of the bridges. I think on this one, this would be the sticker that would hold the dog in its wrapper. Then he's got the foil version. And then he put all 3 together on one page. So you get to go through it. But then what this does is it keeps people like, oh, wait, I want to see that one again. Go to the first one. And they're going up and down and up and down. You show, and here they are, side by side, done and done. Like, which one? And then you can be like, then people can talk. Like, oh, this one compared to this one, compared to this one, I like this, that, or the other. And then after that, what's next? Okay, after you reviewed this proof, let me know your favorite concept and send any tweaks or changes you'd like to explore in the next round. Reach out if you have any questions. And then this is part of this, the schedule, done, discovery, improv, poster proof, upcoming sketches, sketch revisions to one concept if needed, one round, polish up, highly resolution layout proof, minor revisions if needed, 2 rounds, final approval. So all of this is set up that this is also in the contract. And this is to remind them what's in the contract. So they don't start going like, well, we like this one, but we'd like to see changes to this one. And maybe if we did something, they can't. They're not allowed to do that. Sketch revisions to one concept if needed. And then he's going to continue on. So he puts all that in there, and then there's the thank you. And then if I close out, this is the final tightened up image. Much finer line work, crazy, finer line work. It's got making sure things stick out where they needed to, added details. And this must be the one they went with. So there you go. So I just wanted to show that, like I said, as part of that process that we're doing, it is true that what you are creating when you create these presentation templates is something you should be doing with anybody. If you have a little freelance job or a client, you should present it like this. We don't just give them something, give the client something with no explanation, nothing on it, and be like, yeah, here, what do you think? Hey, Joey, what do you think of this? And you're like, oh, well, this isn't very professional. You step through it. And a lot of this is, as you have seen, you write out as if you were there because you can't always be there. They don't know, there's not always a meeting about things. There might be an introductory meeting. They might be just send a creative brief. And then, so that's why you do what you do. So there you go. Wanted to run through that with you, show you another professional version of why we do what we do. I know it's a little more illustration bent, but the same thing would go with like 100% graphic design, that you would show them, here's my idea, here are my sketches, this is how it should work. And then your whole process that you do with me is mimicking what you do in real life. So there you go. With that said, let's get the work from session 10 done. Tuesday's work is due tonight at midnight. Thursday's work is due on Thursday. Thursday, we are going to introduce the new project, the final project of the semester for this class. So there you go. Any questions, comments, concerns? All right, cool. I'm looking forward to getting into this last one. Product promotion. It also deals with holiday. Yes, it also deals with the holiday. So there we go. All right, take care. And if I don't see you on the discussion boards, I'll talk to you again on Thursday. All right, bye-bye.